Hello, Call of Duty fans! Long time no see for a lot of you. Might be here for the first time. If so, welcome. Now, I've been prefacing a lot of my videos on the fact that, hey, don't you worry, I'll be back with more regular content soon. But things keep coming up. Again, I do a lot with the broadcasting, shoutcasting style of things. We've been doing a lot with the Collegiate Call of Duty League. By the way, mark your calendars, Tuesday. We'll be doing the grand finals of that whole season 1. We'll be doing that live at 7 o'clock Eastern time at twitch.tv/collegecod. You are not going to want to miss that one. It's going to be an epic matchup. Humber College is currently awaiting the losers bracket games to come all the way through to see who they're going to be facing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then beyond that, I also do Overwatch commentary, and we are just finishing up Chinese contenders, where I'll be doing playoffs and stuff like that throughout the next couple of weeks. So it's been a very crazy last handful of weeks. My current plan is to start doing more regular hard-hitting content from the start of London all the way through. I almost said Fort Worth. We already did that. Again, that's just how back and forth I am. It feels like this month has completely flown by already. Also, welcome to 420 Day. But let's dig into what we have here. RosterMania Part 1 changes. We're still expecting some changes to come through, but I wanted to give you guys some heads ups considering the fact that we have some solid rosters already set in stone. So like I did before Fort Worth, let's take a look at who's not making changes, who has already made changes, who's still making moves, and then God only knows what's going on. So let's start with the no changes department, at least that we would anticipate so far. There is absolutely nothing happening in the top side of things when it comes to teams like Luminosity, Optic Gaming, 100 Thieves. I guess Pharaoh technically from the sub spot got moved, but that's not really that big of a deal. E United has been locked in since Simp came on. Heretics so far seem locked in. Gen G as well with the addition of Envoy. They feel solid there. Same thing with Splice. They seem to be locking things down as far as what we're anticipating. And then also Reciprocity. Now, changes being made currently, or changes that have been made currently, include Denial, UYU, Team Envy, and then here's a new logo for all of you that might be familiar. This is Team Elevate that's coming in. And Elevate is a squad that previously was in Call of Duty. They will be taking over the spot that Accelerate Gaming previously held. So that's who you're going to be seeing there. And then still waiting some moves that are definitely going to be happening include Evil Geniuses, Midnight Esports, and Enigma 6. And then only God knows what's going on with this Red Reserve spot. Again, Red Reserve has dropped all of their players. The org has completely backed out. The rumor mill right now is that FaZe will be taking over their spot with a hybrid roster that includes some Red Reserve players as well as some other players from around the league previously as well as currently. So that's all speculation filled. I don't want to get there yet because we don't know what's going on with it. Let's go ahead and dig into the teams that are currently making some changes or that had just made changes, starting off with UYU. The team as it went through Fort Worth and the cross divisional consisted of Proto Method, Mayhem, Knight, and Parzelian. There will be a little bit of a swap here up front. Knight will be leaving, heading over to Midnight Esports, and Royalty will be coming in from Evil Geniuses. Now, this is a team that did not have a good cross-divisional week whatsoever. They got their 3-0 versus Heretics. In fact, they beat Heretics every single time they've played them so far. That's a total of 3 times thus far since the PLQ. They then would go 0-3 versus every team they face. Now, previous to Fort Worth, you might remember me saying how much I enjoyed this roster coming in. The problem came down to the simple fact that Knight was getting very little to no help up front. Proto with the SOG has been doing okay. Knight had been doing okay, but there were some big weaknesses and inconsistencies there. And it looks like UYU is well aware of that as they'll be bringing in Royalty, who's been running the SMG for Evil Geniuses. Now, Royalty has been playing well. Is he any better than Knight? I have a hard time really thinking that this was the proper change. I would have loved to have seen them fork out the cash for someone like Decimate because that would have put this roster on the spot. But the Royalty for Knight sub is kind of whatever. This is a 6th place team in Division A, only having won 6 games in total so far, which is not at all what you want to see, considering that 2 of those 6 wins came during their time at Fort Worth, and they only finished top 12 there after, again, they did not have the best of showing that I would have expected. Coming up for London, though, they will be playing in Group D, which should be a pretty solid group for them to kind of get their feet wet and start to get themselves warmed up. They'll be going up against the pool that includes Midnight, Heretics, again, we know how they do against Heretics, and Elevate, the new team that's in the ballpark. So definitely look for this team to potentially make some moves. I'll be doing, again, a power rankings going into London right before we get there, just to kind of give you expectations as far as how I think teams will rate with their roster changes. But I just don't know if this roster has it in them with just subbing in Royalty for Knight to make that much of a dramatic change. I still don't see them doing any more better than they're already currently doing because that SMG line is pretty weak. We'll switch over to the other team that's only making a couple of moves. That is actually going to be Team Envy, the team that was previously Hugh, Aches, Apathy, Assault, and Silly since really the start of the game. We'll be making some final swaps. Apathy and Assault will be moved away. Apathy will be going over to Evil Geniuses. Assault has been moved to Restricted Free Agent, which means if someone wants to buy him out, they will have to pay a considerable price for him. In place of those two players, Decimate will be coming to Team Envy, which I love that pickup, and Pharaoh will be in the mix as well, which is very interesting because Pharaoh has been all over the place as far as what he's been running weaponry-wise so far, was he was the sub for 100 Thieves and previously when he was starting for 100 Thieves. So that's going to be the roster now of Hugh, Aches, Decimate, Pharaoh, and Silly. I like this roster a lot. It's just kind of surprising because they did have a pretty solid cross-divisional week, and there must have been some inner turmoil going on with this squad because the Apathy change, I get, because again, the SOG presence in this game is so important in 5v5s. You need to find somebody who can enter and be the entry fragger to at least trade out their life, if not find multiples. He's got to be the guy that commits and trusts his team to bait and switch and find double peaks, and Apathy had not been locking down that role as good as other SOGs. Now, is he a bad SOG? No, not at all, actually. In fact, for Evil Geniuses, I don't have a specific team page for them yet because they're still making more changes, but getting rid of Royalty and bringing in Apathy is actually a pretty big bonus for them, I would say. I think that the ceiling for Apathy is a lot higher than that of Royalty. But with Pharaoh and Decimate coming in, again, Decimate I think is one of the best SMG kind of flex players in the game when he was playing with G2. We'll see how much work he's gotten since then because he's been playing pretty much on his own, not obviously being in a league, and also being restricted free agent means that he hasn't been playing in any open or amateur teams either. So it'd be interesting to see how well he steps into this Envy squad and can they instantly turn things on. They're currently just an even 8-8 with a 35-31 map win-loss ratio. 5th place, good enough for that for Div B. There's only a top 12 finish at Fort Worth. They will be in Group C at London, going up against E United, the Red Reserve slot, and Evil Geniuses. So a chance here for them to go up against what would be their counterparts, I guess, with Apathy being in that pool as well. Now, let's switch over and start talking about the teams that are making and have made more dramatic changes, starting with the EXCELERATE roster, which again is now Elevate. That roster, again, previously with EXCELERATE was Brack, Skies, M. Ruiz, Jet Li, and Profizi. They only had a 4-11 record, 27-35 for the map count. Only good enough for 8th, dead last in Div B, and only top 16 at Fort Worth. They split their cross div, but it was actually really close for them to completely turn things on as you take a look at what they were able to do. 2-2-3 losses to solid teams, and then 2 3-0s. Maybe there's just some changes because the org change happens. And again, here is that new roster as Elevate will be that new squad. They will be getting rid of Brack and Jet Li. Brack going over to the new Denial team and Jet Li being dropped to a free agent market. They'll be bringing in Whalers and Brezzy from the previous Denial squad, which was that French team. So this Elevate team will be consisting of Profizi, Skies, and M. Ruiz still on the roster, but adding in Whalers and Brezzy. And this is interesting because I don't know how they're going to come. I think Whalers knows English pretty well, but I don't know if Brizzy does. And that is going to be interesting. I personally do not like this roster at all. I don't know what happened with Brack and Jet Li, why they got dropped, but these are not strong additions, I would say. Profizi with the SOG will be there. You feel that Breezy as well will be there with the SOG. Whalers is mostly an ICR player, but so is Skies. So I guess what this roster will be is Profizi and Breezy up front, Whalers in the back, and then Skies and Emery's is the flex. I guess? I don't know. I don't like this change at all. But taking over the EXCELERATE spot again, they'll still retain that 4-11, and they will be playing in Pool D at London. Again, that consists of Midnight, Heretics, and UYU. I'm confused by this move, flat out. That's the only way of putting it. I have no idea why this is the team, of all things. Confused by it. Let's take a look, though, and move on, because I could sit on that topic for a long time. And go over to Denial. Again, as we just hinted at, there have been some moves towards Denial. Full French roster drop coming out for the side of Denial, and they're bringing in most of what was Red Reserve with a couple of other additions. So Whalers, Zeke, Risk, Breezy, and Natche all gone with the exception of Zeke. He will actually be retaining the substitute spot. And again, you have to have one player sticking on to make sure you retain your spot in the Pro League. So I guess Zeke is the player to do that. I think it's probably wise on his part because I don't see him going anywhere else at this point in time. So then you get Brack, Alex, Rated Joe, and Bance. And honestly, Rated Joe and Bance pickup is not terrible, not great. I would say that this is by far the weaker side of Red Reserve. I think you would have rather have had Scraps in the mix. I think that obviously if you would have been able to find a way to get Scraps in 0, that would have been great, but obviously that's not the case. So you'll be getting most of what is the back line with Rated and Bance, and then you have Joe up there for probably a SOG. I imagine Alex will be up there as well with the SOG, and then Brack will likely be holding down a Maddox with either Rated or Bance. I guess it depends on what they want to do. So this is a pretty okay roster, but that's about all I can stamp on it, is that it's an okay roster. I wouldn't say it's great. It's mostly all EU players with the exception of Brack, so that'll be interesting. And it's also curious to see, like, is Alex going to be traveling all the way over to the United States to be staying? Don't really know 100% sure what's going on, at least as this moment was going through. Again, Denial with only that 5-11 record was only good enough for 7th place in Div B with a top 12 finish at CWL Fort Worth. And they will be in Pool B, which is a very difficult pool with Gen G, Splice, and Luminosity. You don't see any world, I think, that this roster takes any sets off of those teams. Not with the lack of preparation coming in. Who knows how much work they've been able to get in so far, let alone these last 2 weeks coming up. But I just don't see them being able to handle probably 3 of the best teams, if not the 3 best teams in the game right now. So a lot of considerations there, but that'll conclude things for this portion of the RosterMania. Now, there are still a ton of things speculated. Again, Evil Geniuses is still making moves. We also know for a fact that Enigma 6 will be making a move, as there has been at least one confirmed move so far, and maybe more coming soon for E6. And then beyond that, what's happening with the Red Reserve spot? We anticipate it will be going to FaZe Clan, but again, it's all speculation at this point. We don't 100% know, but I don't know who else would take the spot. Maybe G2. I mean, that's been a name that has been tossed around very, very, very mildly, but that's the only other org out there that I could think could possibly afford the spot. So that'll do it for this one. I'll be back to do more confirmations once we get some more solid rosters for teams like Evil Geniuses, Enigma 6, and of course, what the heck is going on with Midnight, and then beyond that, the Red Reserve spot. We anticipate those changes to be coming up pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Beyond that, though, I also have, again, a couple of interviews lined up. I'm just finishing the graphics package for it, and you should be expecting some interviews coming up with players. Some of them dealing with some pretty dramatic issues with their roster changes and things like that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're a returner, it's good to still have your guys' attention for now. If you're new, it's been great to have you. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing by hitting that sub button and ringing the bell to get notifications when my videos do pop up. And again, it's going to be soon that we'll start doing more regular content. I promise you that. I promise you that it'll just be soon. I've got to finish off the regular season. Hopefully we'll catch you guys on Tuesday night for the grand finals of the Collegiate Call of Duty League. And until next time, hope you keep holding it down. So long.